Hi, witches.
I'm Jamie.
And I'm Kat.
And welcome to our meeting tonight about Yule. So tonight's meetup is about celebrating Yule. Because this is really like fact-based stuff, and then I'll give some information on the holiday and sort of throughout a couple cultures. Then we'll do some journal prompts, and I'll give you ideas for like if you want to do some other magical spell work or focusing. I have ideas for that as well. But tonight is going to be a lot of conversation, hopefully, once we get through the lesson plan. I'm starting to sound more and more like a teacher.
She is a teacher. She's all of our teachers. And we love her for that.
I'm my own teacher. I have to learn stuff all the time. I love learning. I love it.
So lucky to have her.
Thanks, Mom.
I
do apologize for coming in a little late. And like last time, if you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and put them into the chat while we're giving the information out, and then we'll address them as soon as we finish that. We'll take all the questions and start a discussion after the lesson plan.
Thank you, Felicia. So Felicia loves my necklace. Thank you.
And in our true fashion, for each of the holidays, some people create different things for the 8 Witches holidays. My thing is really anything like crowns and dressings. We've always said that we feel like royalty in the pagan way, where it's like we would have been honored, we would honor ourselves, we would have honored everybody. It's not like we're some hierarchy special thing, but I like to adorn myself like the goddess that I know I am. And I hope that you all have a thing that you do for yourselves that like really honors that goddess inside of you as well. I am not afraid to go out in public like this. I will take pictures in it. It doesn't bother me. What I used to do before I really talk to people about everything is a lot of stuff in the water, because I'm a water sign. So if you do, bath rituals, you go down to a lake, a water, or the ocean, a river, and bless yourself there. The water is very connected to the goddess and the moon. So that's why we're wearing crowns tonight. For each holiday, we try to create a different crown to be festive. These are our festive Yule crowns. And tonight we're drinking ale, so no tea tonight. We're drinking actual, AKA beer. The drink of the gods. I forget what movie that was from, the drink of the gods. Okay, it is 6:06 because we started this late. I'm already running behind, but
all right, we better get started then.
Okay, so with Yule, as you guys know, super nerdy, love to tell you how this holiday got its start, the names, where it all comes from, how it meshes with the American holidays that we have today, because obviously when we go to stores, we see things like Christmas trees and lots of things that are not about the Christmas season. It's way more Yule related. So a long time ago, in order to get pagans to feel comfortable, as Christians were blending, right? The religions were all blending and people wanted to live in the same community. They moved the Christian birth holiday of Jesus from the summer to the winter solstice to try to make them so that the two holidays really match. And this isn't just with Christianity. There's a lot of cultures that all of their sun gods were born during the winter solstice, because it's the sun's return. So you can't change astronomically, astrologically, celestially what's happening in the heavens. Our Earth is at its furthest tilt back from the sun, which means that we have our longest night, the shortest day and the longest night. So as people create holidays, they move them to the part of the year that felt like it coordinated better. So with each holy child, holy sun god that was born, they're usually born during the winter solstice because it's the sun's return. So for the goddess, that means that she's given birth and now she's in the rest and recovery phase of her existence. So this is about sleep and wisdom for the goddess.
And the goddess is?
Okay, us.
No. Oh, I thought we were celebrating.
Well, for me personally, during this time of the year, Hecate is the goddess.
Hecate.
She's, dark wisdom in the underworld, and she's associated with a lot of things. But for me, this shadow time, this darker time where we got to be indoors a lot, practical work is not outdoors anymore. It's more inside. I do things towards her or thinking about what she likes. So we each have 3 flowers because she's related with the number 3. That's why you'll see her with the 3 faces, 3 dogs or 3-headed dog. Her number is 3. So you don't have to do anything else as far as like asking Hecate to be with you. It's just knowing that sort of the dark time of the year is sort of her thing. So also Persephone. I mean, there's a little bit of Persephone in that. I love Persephone as well. But okay, so solstice. The word solstice means that the sun stands still. And technically, of course, it doesn't. But where it rises on the horizon, it sets in the same degree on the horizon. So you get a very short sunrise to sunset arc. So that's what solstice means. And I went through that, yes. So the one thing to write down for this holiday, because sometimes the dark times are depressing. This is why we have a lot of family gatherings and parties and like fire stuff, s'mores and cookouts.
Beer.
It's things that make you feel warm. It's embracing the light over the light over like dark and misery. So you can choose to be alone in the darkness and sort of like sad, or you can bring light into your house after the sun goes down. So this is definitely, fires, candles, anything that brings light in. And you want to choose, joy. Okay. So with the merging of religions, I love that as we blended over the last 2,000 years and our languages changed, if you've ever looked into like the way that words transition from one culture to the next, the earliest form of Christ or Christian anything was from the Jewish word Messiah, which means anointed one. So this was another way to point out somebody that they deemed was special. And a long time ago, a Messiah wasn't a single person. A Messiah was anybody anointed by a group of people that they felt could be a leader or in charge of something. So the word Messiah, when it got translated into Greek, was Christos. I'm probably not saying it very well. I don't know any Greek people or how to say it with an accent, but Christos in Greek then became Christ in English. So Christmas means mas, meaning more or light, is an anointed one and it's a chosen one. And that's where you get the return of the light. So just so you know how Christmas came about, I like that because it's kind of like, I never knew where the word Christ came from or what it meant. Some people said it meant blood and I don't know. But it is translated from the word Messiah from the Jewish language, meaning anointed one. So I liked that. I wanted to list for you guys some other gods. If you're interested in working with gods from different cultures, these are all celebrating their birth during this time as well. Horus from Egypt, the sun, or also known as Ra, it was just transitional. Baldur, who is from the Norse culture. Apollo, of course, right? Apollo and the Greeks. Apollo and Helios are sort of the same. One name took over after they had some kind of holiday, and then they started calling him Hilo and Helios, and I don't know. One of the guys in charge made the name change for that. If you like the Roman culture, it's Dionysus. And then, of course, if you know the holiday Lunasow, the god Lu is also a Celtic sun god. So these are all archetypes that we celebrate during this time of year to signify that there's a special return of light in our life. So without having to name deities or get into cultural differences, if all you think about is that light is returning into your life, that's like the simplest way to celebrate this season. And as a seasonal note, when we say season, even though the holiday, the event happens tomorrow night, you really celebrate this, 3 weeks before, 3 to 4 weeks after it. So this season is long, even when there's an event or a date that it falls on. So you're free to celebrate, today, tomorrow, 3 weeks from now, because I'm going to talk about spells and stuff. So there's not like, you must do everything tomorrow night. That's not the thing. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about stuff that could be sensitive. So if you've been traumatized in the past or have hurts and pains, some of the things that I will talk about or say here may be triggers for you. And if they are, write them down and explore that part of yourself. Like understand where your pain comes from or where hurt comes from. Because with all the cultures that I talked about with their gods, everybody's battling the light over dark. But why do they battle? Like, that's the big thing. We've been made to believe that everything should always be light and joy and happiness, and that dark equals evil. But if we look at the word evil, that means intending to do harm. So darkness is not evil. So just like writing that down, understanding that when you think dark or you feel dark, this doesn't mean evil and ominous and like impending doom. It means dark as in it's the opposite of light, where you're resting. It's like being awake versus resting. So asking yourself, do you really think that dark and evil are the same? How are they different for you? How do you differentiate if you were to call somebody evil versus dark? Where's the similarities there? Because Yule is a perfect
evil
time
is dark,
for...
but not all darkness is evil.
Sorry, Devin, if you'll write it in the comments, I couldn't hear you, hon. Thanks. Yeah. Yule's the perfect time to assess your own darkness. And it's just times when you don't feel light in the world. So are you allowed to feel sad at the end of the day? Absolutely. Is there something wrong with that? No. Work through the sadness and just be like, I accept this feeling. I'll feel better in a little bit, to understand that sadness is a part of it, because you can't know joy without feeling sadness. That's how you know that there's a different side to it. Opposite side of a coin. I guess that would be a good way to say it. So if you guys don't know, I have a psychology degree, and of course, looking into the dark side of human nature and understanding how people get better, especially in leadership roles. That was what I used to do, is help people become better leaders and just taking care of their people. There's something called the dark triad of human behavior, and it's narcissism, Machiavellianism, and then psychopathy, which is like being a psychopath, but it's pronounced psychopathy. And I wanted to list some words that, for one, my sister uses words like this all the time. So they become really not associated with anything, but more like with everything. Oh, she's psycho. All right, well, probably not. Maybe she was just a little erratic or impulsive. But, the words get used so much that they lose their true meaning. And then when you use a word like I'm depressed, it's very heavy for labeling. So here's behaviors that would be part of that dark triad. So if you find yourself using these words, labeling other people as this, people labeling you as this, it's when you hear them, it's like pay attention to them so that you can make for yourself the judgment of what it really means and how it can either help you, hurt you, or stay away from it altogether. But manipulative, I've probably heard that 100,000 times between different people, boyfriend, girlfriend stuff, children, parents. But manipulation, what does it really look like? How do people do it? Because you have manipulation through excessive charm, right? People who charm their way into situations, doesn't seem all negative, but they're doing it for a purpose that only serves themselves. And then my favorite is, people who sleep their way through a situation. So using their looks to get what they want, and it's still only serving themselves, and they hurt people along the way. So any kind of pride in a way that is, you don't come down to reality. It's like you're so prideful that you can't see things for what they are. Having pride in something you do is not a shameful thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just that where you hold yourself in pride regards to others. So if you're very prideful, it's like you need to be the best at everything, win at everything, outdo other people, hold your standing. Where you're placed in the group is important. Egotism, sort of the same thing. It's only thinking about yourself. That's the I statements. Lack of empathy is probably the biggest one. If you cut somebody off in traffic, do you feel justified? If you're rude to somebody who was slow or in your way, do you feel like that was okay? Understanding where you might lack empathy for people around you, or even for yourself, not allowing yourself to feel bad about your current situation or something that's happened to you. Antisocial. I love this one because I used to say all the time, I'm antisocial, which just meant I didn't like being with people, but that's not antisocial. Antisocial is when you do things to mess up the social standing in a group. So say I was at a family gathering and I wanted to just start some shit, right? I'm like, it's boring. I'm just going to go over and be like, hey, you know what she said about you like last week? So you do something that disrupts the social order in a place. And by social order, it just means that everybody's having a good time and you come in with some mischievous comment that's going to stir up opinions or get in between people. So that's actually antisocial. It means you're against people being socially calm. Impulsiveness. This is through eating. This is through buying. Impulsive actions that, you get up and leave and run away for 2 days and then come back to it because you're trying to not deal with your own stuff. Selfishness. What things do you only hoard for yourself and you're afraid to share? That's sort of where people get into lack mentality, where they don't think there's enough to go around, so they hoard for themselves, or they don't want to share with other people because they're undeserving. That goes back into egotism. And then the very last one that I wrote down, because I know that was already a lot, but it's a low agreeableness with others. So if you see a person in your environment that never seems to get along with anybody, or if you often run into, I am so different than everybody, I can't agree with anyone, look at your own beliefs and opinions. And it doesn't mean that you have to agree with them, but do you do it in such a way that, again, it disrupts the social standing? Like, you always have to say your opinion to make sure everybody knows who you are and that you're right in your mind. Okay, so with looking at those, the reason that I mentioned all of this is because this is the best time to do things for releasing stuff about ourselves, right? Get rid of those bad habits. Let go of the things that don't serve you. All the walls that we build up in our life from people who have hurt us and fucked us so screwed us over, and just really, like, you wish it didn't happen, but now that it has, you're like one more brick on top of a brick, and nobody will ever do this to me again, and I'll just keep living my life like closed off, and it stops us from spreading joy. So the full circle here is that when we look at this dark side of ourselves, how can we become a light in the world? Because I think when we're drawn to the craft like we are, you don't want to live in the mundane where the structure and everything tells you who you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to do. If everybody lived where they were trying to be a light in the world for other people and not just for themselves, we would all feel better about where we lived and how we lived. If everybody was kind everywhere you went, right? Like, there was no evil stares and awkward silences in places that you go, because people are happy and they're willing to talk to you and be like, I really like your dress today. I really like your hair, or you have a pleasant whatever. We don't do things like that. We don't put ourselves out there to be a light for others and get that reflected back to us. So that's why I'm talking about all the dark stuff, because the prompts for the journaling is going to be about how can you work through your stuff to be a light in the world that you want to be, right? Someone's saying, be the change in the world you want to see. I wish I knew who said that. I don't remember.
Is it Simon Sinek?
No.
Okay.
It was somebody way better. Not that I don't like Simon Sinek.
I like Simon Sinek.
He's
all
all
right.
right.
I don't know who it is.
But
Bill Gates?
I was thinking it was like Maya Angelou mom. No, she's in business.
Steve Jobs? I don't know.
No.
Okay.
But it's
the Dalai Lama. Okay.
No.
All right. If anybody knows, somebody Google.
Somebody
Be
chat
the light.
it. Put it
Be
in the
the
chat.
light. Be the light you want.
No, it's be the change in the world you want to see.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's the actual
exact
thing.
quote. Okay.
And I try to live by this all the time. And like I said earlier, I really felt like I was antisocial. I did not want to be around people. I didn't want to make small talk. I didn't want to get to know anybody. And that stems from my own stuff that happened. But, in my last probably 5 years, I put myself out there to be more kind to others, no matter what it makes me look like. And we have this idea of ourselves that we're going to look stupid. We're going to not be received well. I'm going to say something to them and they're going to be like, what the heck are you talking about?
Well, let's be fair. There's a lot of judgment in the world. And whenever we put ourselves out there and behave in a way that's different than what we see going on around us, like if everybody around us driving on the road's an a-hole, or most people are, and then you're the nice guy, then they're just going to be like, oh, you sucker. They're not probably really doing that. But I mean, we're faced with that because there is a lot of judgment. So,
all right. I love your example. But think about, all right, so what Kat just talked about is totally relevant, because what does that bring us back to? Protecting ourselves from looking like a fool, protecting ourselves from being used and taken advantage of. If we're the nice guys finish last sort of thing. The only response that I can say to that, because my son, who's 16 and definitely an a-hole to me sometimes.
Temporarily.
Teenage a-hole. He's a 16-year-old, But
most of them.
he doesn't like that I want to be nice all the time. He's like, nobody can be perfect like you. It's not perfect, it's a choice. I just choose to go out and not be the dickhead. That's it. Even when people are dickheads, I'll laugh about it. I'll be like, whoa, they got some shit to work through. Like, what? You just don't respond to that. I don't give into their vibe. And so this, for myself, I've set the healthy boundary that said, I can admit that 10, 20 years ago, I had this same vibe. I was them on the other side, definitely. But I've done the work at looking at myself and being like, what do I wish the world really looked like for everybody else, not just for myself, but for everybody else? I wish my kid didn't see all this stuff on social media and wherever, right? I wish that people really did care about each other and didn't stop, and then they stopped being like crazy, obsessive, controlling, and like everything's for me. I must hoard, I must do this. Like COVID really sent a spiral with the whole like toilet paper shortage. And it's like, what people are fighting over these things. Like if we just acted normal, carried on our way, tried to give to your neighbor, whatever it is, I don't know how you can do it for yourself, but that's what we're talking about with looking at your dark side, the things that, not evil necessarily, but just things that are not copacetic with you that you would like to change to become the light in the world, whatever that means to you. I mentioned a lot of things, but.
Well, I think for me, I was one of those ones that, I had some pretty high, thick walls built up around me from all the crap that happened to me when I was young. And it took me a long time to come to the point where I was willing to start breaking those down. And it's hard when you have, we all have stuff that happens to us in our lives, starting, maybe you had the perfect upbringing, maybe you didn't. I mean, but at some point in your life, things happen and these walls go up, and you put up those as a defense against things so that you don't get hurt in the future, you don't get used in the future, you don't get made to feel like crap. But I think for me anyway, the reason that I chose this path is because I don't, it's a spiritual path for me. And I want to be that light in the world. I want to bring that. So, and I think that's what witchcraft is. For me, that's what this path is about, is being a different type of person in the world and bringing things into the world that are not there and trying to make it a better place by taking care and being kind and spreading kindness and just, yeah.
It comes from consciousness over your own thoughts and actions. When you are truly conscious, every time you say something, make an action, make a face, interact with somebody, there's this thing in psychology that when people hear their own name, it makes them feel warm and accepted. Like if you how many people greet their cashiers or their bagger guys, like by their name or say their name and be like, how are you today, Betty? I don't know why Betty came to mind. I don't think I've ever had a cashier named Betty, but if you use their name, they feel recognized. Just as if you were in a job, if somebody recognized your name, you'd be like, oh my God, I feel acknowledged. Acknowledgement of yourself, acknowledgement of others. It's a way to make a connection that feels better than ignoring them, acting like nothing here is happening. I'm just going to give you my money. I'm just like not going to look at you. We're not going to exchange eye contact. I don't want to know about your day. Don't ask me about my day. Don't want to know. And that does not feel good at all compared to, hey, also, how's your day going? Are you almost off yet? Like, what time did you start work? Or I hope everything's been really pleasant for you. I've watched people in front of me be, real jerks to people in service. And then I come behind them. I'm like, I go extra. I'm like, how are you today? I'm so sorry that happened to you. Like, people should be nicer. And we just get in that exchange where then it lifts them up immediately. You can see it on their face, the way they stand. They're like, yeah, I'm not going to let that one person get me down. Because instead they could, the people who then are in customer service or whatever could turn into a-holes. But
well, I remember going to the mall and standing in the long line to get my first COVID vaccine. And the place, there was, 500 people in here, and tables upon tables and rows of people checking people in, moving people around, getting shots, all the stuff that had to be done. I don't know if any of you guys went to a site like that, but I remember watching all of this going on and the whole vibe in the place. People were anxious. And the folks that were working, that were checking you in at the table, their eyes were down the whole time, looking at your little thing. They never really looked up at you. So when I got up to the table and the girl was looking down at my card and filling it out and stuff, I was getting ready to leave. I said, I just want to say thank you so much for what you're doing. And the look on her face, it was like she was so surprised for somebody. And that made me feel great to make her feel good about it. So it's little things like that where you can just say a kind word to people and just change their, their whole day. And what does that cost us? Not a thing. And it actually makes you feel better too.
Yeah.
And this comes from a person who really never, I was kind of like my daughter. I never really, a resting bitch face is my natural, look on my face.
On it.
And I'm not a bitch. I can be one, but people would perceive me that way because I was just like kind of stony and they would think I was stuck up, and I'm really not, but guarded was more. So really working on that on this journey that I'm on. So,
well, that's a great segue into the magical focuses then.
Okay, because I was going to say one of the reasons that Jamie's talking about all this is because here in a minute, we're going to give you some journal prompts for you to write about so that you can think about your own place, where you are on your path. And one of the things I would like to say to you is when we give you these journal prompts is I told you why I came to this path. Why did you come here? Why did you choose this? That's a really good thing to journal about and to think about, like, why did you choose this path and what do you want out of it? So I'll let you.
Yeah, what you want out of it.
Yeah, what do you want? Did you come for the spells so you can manipulate, energy, or did you come for something else? Are you truly on a spiritual journey? Because for me, that's what this is.
When you said manipulate, I thought you were going to immediately say people, but you
No.
said energy.
Manipulate energy. You just want to cast spells and see what you can,
Yeah.
I mean, because we all want that power. I think anyway, but that's not why I chose this path. I chose this path as my spiritual journey for the rest of my life.
Well, one thing with energy manipulation, whether it's manifestation or law of attraction with spells, is that whatever we think, whatever our vibe is, we're going to attract anyways. It doesn't matter. So if you're a shitty person, you're going to have stuff repeatedly happen to you that's shitty. And some of the counselings that I've given for people is just that. They complain about all the bad things that happen to them. And yet they go out into the world and they're continually shitty to their friends and family. And I'm like, what do you expect that will come back to you when this is how you treat everyone around you? You're not the exception where you get to act like an ass and everybody else is going to treat you kindly. It's not going to happen like that. So I had to let that person go because they never got it together. And I was tired of repeating myself. And sometimes that's just the breakaway. So that's what leads us into the magical focuses during this time. If any of these things hit for you, there's so much stuff online for you guys to try. Nothing that you do is going to be wrong unless it's trying to control another person or harm something. So the magical focuses during the Yule time is birth and beginnings. So not only are we closing out a cycle, but we're also birth and beginnings. This is the new sun rising. So with birth and beginnings, like I said, it's the cycle of birth and ending. So you're ending, you're birthing, you're ending, you're birthing every year. It's great that this comes close to what we celebrate now as New Year's, because it's the perfect time to make those, what do people say, New Year's resolutions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The New Year's resolution lists, do one for yourself as a witch. We made a meetup that's, growing your craft in 2022 with goal setting in mind, so that when people want to grow in their craft, like, how do you do that? How do you get through those steps? So ending one cycle of, like, maybe you've just been reading for an entire year and you haven't done anything yet. Now is the time to start doing the activation of it. We talked about this a little bit, but gratitude, finding time in your day to be grateful for things in your life that are good, grateful for things that are around you, helping other people be grateful for what they have. And then the things that you're not grateful for, look at how you can let them go. Right? I talked about this a couple meetings ago that I'm not really grateful for the clothes I have in a box from 10 years ago where I was in really good shape. And every time I look at them, they kind of make me sad. I'm like, I don't think I'm ever getting back there. It's been 10 years. I gotta let them go. I didn't look at those and be like, oh, I'm so grateful.
Now those clothes are out of style. They won't be back in style for another 10 years.
It didn't matter. It was just the fact of, like, I wanted to try to fit in them.
I've had those boxes of clothes. I know.
So if there's things in your life that you're grateful for, speak it out loud, journal about it, honor that. And then that allows you to look at the things that you're not grateful for, that you don't want in your life. So that's the releasing and letting it die. They always say, let that shit die, let it go. Restoration. So things that you've started that you want to get back into. Sacrificing. The sacrificing is part of the letting go. It's really hard sometimes to tell yourself that you're never going to be 20 again. I'm probably never going to do the marathon that I wanted to do when I was in my 20s because I'm just not committed like I was. So letting that go and just sacrificing all the stuff that you may have built up in your head so that you can make room for something else. So this is where the feminine part of the holiday comes in. But the silence, women are really good at going into our minds and conjuring up things that we don't have to speak. We can just, it's all in our minds. So that silent part of the goddess, that moon shining, that she's not really making anything grow, but she's making waves and tides and things with water move, emotions. So it would be the silence there that you can honor and respect. Sleep, get lots of rest during this time. You're amping up for that new cycle. And then wisdom. Of course, that's more of the goddess side as well, because wisdom comes from the ancient waters, the dark skies that allow you to think and not do work. So the difference between being out in the sunshine in the old days, in the way old days, everything we did in the light is what helped us survive. Everything that we did at night helped us grow as humans, as people, as spirits, as souls. So if you think about our days and nights like that, that's why this time of the year is really good for reflecting and thinking and getting deep inside of ourselves, because we have so much more time that's in that dark time than we do in the daylight time to work and, make food. But
I relate that to, I think about the seed that starts in the dark, and what that seed turns into. That's the thing that came to my mind when you said that about.
Well, that's absolutely right. Okay, so just a couple of quick spell ideas for you guys. We're in Florida, so we do not get ice or frost or really, in general, cold weather, sadly. We were hoping for it this weekend. But there is, during this time, if you think about ice, meaning that it's still, it's silent. So any kind of ice spell that you want to do is the water and wisdom, but it's also the silence part. So the ice cube releasing spell, this is basically where you get a thinner piece of paper because you want it to kind of like biodegrade. They say toilet paper, but I don't know. Use whatever paper at your discretion that you can write on. For each ice cube that you're going to make is one single item or piece of paper that goes in there. So it's things that you want to release about yourself, from your life, habits, behaviors. It can be people, it can be a job, but things you want to let go of. And you basically write it on that piece of paper. You put it in the ice cube tray with water. You freeze it overnight. You go to your sacred space, wherever it is outside, or a place that you just feel is really beautiful. And when you're releasing this back into nature, knowing that as this is melting or when it melts with the spring, depending on where you live, that what you're trying to release and let go of is also going at that time. So that's a ice cube releasing spell. It's something that takes a little longer so that you can reflect over it. That's why you do it in the wintertime. You can do it anytime between, if you want to make it specific for the solstice, anytime between now and New Year's is really good. So the next couple of weeks. And then if you want to do it for something that's bigger or takes more effort, anytime between now and February 2nd, which is in bulk. So, because in bulk, we start the spring season, February 2nd, also known as Groundhog's Day. So with that releasing spell, you can also do the same thing with manifestation. The only difference is the intent that you put into it when you're holding it in your hand and you're like putting your energy into the ice cube as far as saying what you need to say to the universe or your deities to let it go or build it. Write something down on your piece of paper, stick it in an ice cube. And when you put it out into your place in the environment, you're going to say, as this melts, so grows the thing that it's manifesting into physical form as it's dissipating from just your wish. It's called a wishing cube, I'm pretty sure. Wishing, because they didn't say ice cube back then, just cube. The wishing cube is something that you would put in like lake water. And so that when through the winter, when the springs came and, all the ice in the lakes melted, your wish went into the water and like manifested into something. So we do this now with just a single cube, and it's the same thing, just thinking about it as a manifestation. The next thing, which is really fun, I love this, is during the Yule day. So this is more specific to tomorrow night. if you can light a candle anytime from sunset to wait, an hour or two before dawn, you light a candle, whatever color you want. It can be associated, it could not, but white is good, black is good. Make it a tapered or what's it called? A tapered candle?
Tapered.
Yeah, the tapered candles. And any candle wax that drips off of this during that time, break it off and keep it as good luck. So the candle represents the bringing back of the sun. So the sun is actually like, you have my back, I'm going to have your back. That's how they thought of this candle wax, as a luck charm. So you can add it to other spells. You can keep it for yourself. You can carry it. Don't put it in your car unless you keep it in a sealed container. I did that one year. I put it in a bag. It leaked through all over my carpet. I was in my car a lot. So, I had a small white wax spot in my car carpet. Thank you for the giggle, Mom. I was young.
Listen, I was just thinking about Cameron learning not to stab the things we have to learn as we go through life.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So that's good luck candle wax from Yule. Those are my 3 ideas for you guys. Of course, there's a ton of stuff out there, but if you don't want to do any spells, just journaling during this time and getting some really good insights. Of course, divination, any tarot that you do, write down whatever you ask the cards, and then whatever you get in response, so that you can reflect back on it in about a month, because this is the time for deep wisdom, the longest night. All right, Kat has the journal questions, and then we'll open up the floor for questions.
All right, so journal prompts for you, things that you can journal about. The first one is, what does Death Carol card symbolize?
Start that over.
What does the death card in tarot symbolize for you? What does that mean for you?
So by asking yourself that, the death card can obviously, well, that and the devil probably seem like the scariest cards to get, because we're so associated.
The tower. The tower looks pretty brutal.
The tower looks brutal too. But they seem like something that really we take to heart. And so interpret it in your own way, and whatever interpretations you come up with, like, ask yourself, why do I feel that way about this? Why do I associate these things together? Is death really final for you? Do you believe in reincarnation? If you do, what goes into each life that you put out? What are you trying to get out of this one? Okay, sorry.
All right. Our second prompt is, have you ever felt abandoned? And the way that this can manifest itself is if you're somebody who is extremely self-reliant, like you don't you have to do everything yourself. I don't know who this sounds like. You have to do everything yourself because you don't want to depend on other people because they've let you down in the past. So that's how that abandonment at some point in your life over something, it can be, it can be big or small. Your spouse maybe let you down and now you're like, I'll just do it myself. Your parents let you down and then you become a different type of parent. Or you have, it manifests itself in your relationship, so feelings. So what do you want to add to, have you ever felt abandoned and manifesting in self-reliance?
I think because we just talked about spell
overly
work.
Self-reliance.
Yeah. I think because we just talked about spell work, sometimes we can feel abandoned by spirit or by our guides, where you're just not getting the answers that you're seeking. That is an answer in its own way. You're not either like ask different questions, or you already know the answer and you're trying to get them to give you a different answer. So it's even being abandoned by your inner guidance. If you've ever felt abandoned by that, like, I keep making all the wrong damn choices. That's somebody else that I know that maybe, making the wrong choices a lot. And it's like, what? I have a broken picker. I can't pick the right people for myself. Broken picker.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. Number 3 is, how do you discern between a pure message and an ego message? The human brain versus the spiritual brain.
Yeah. So this is that automatic responses when we come in contact with people, where does your guard immediately go up because you're worried about what people will think of you, judgment, all the shit that can go wrong? Or is it more like, how can I make this situation the best? I'm going to go in here with the best attitude, the most awesome outlook, like everything that could go right is going to go right. What do you enter into, or what mind space are you in when you enter into situations? So that's the pure message, would be like an enlightened one. Pure is a weird word for it. I just couldn't find something else, like, because I like
enlightened.
an,
I think-
enlightened,
I
an
think
enlightened
that-
message versus an ego message. Your
Mm.
ego message is like, protect yourself, don't get hurt, F everybody else. This is for me. You know, that's the ego message.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I often just refer to it as like the human brain versus the spiritual brain.
Mhm.
That's not an official term at all. It's just my term. Okay.
All right. And
Last
our last
one.
one is, where in your life do you currently need the most guidance? Ask universe for it. Ask the universe for it.
Yeah. So during this time of deep wisdom, that's the divination part of it, where it's like, if you're journaling and reflecting, where is it that you need, not want, need the most guidance in your life path, in your spiritual path, your relationship, your job, your children, moving, you know, whatever it is. Career, yeah.
Managing your money, starting a new business.
Money, business, all the things. You know, it's, if we were to wake up every day and know and like look at the end of the road of when we die, we would treat every single day very differently. We would have more gratitude, we would be more purposeful, and we would set ourselves on a different path that had more meaning. Because usually we're just trying to like live the template that's set in front of us and get through stuff. And eventually like, oh, well, in retirement, maybe I'll get to do what I want to do. But the time is now to just break out of that template and do the things that you want to do, because this is your one life as you now. I do believe you'll have other lives if you want them, but this is your life as you now. So be who you want to be in this life. And hopefully it's a light for the whole world. Be the light.
Be the light.
So, okay, well, that is it for our information and our lesson plan. I forgot what I had said earlier, but all right. Thank you everybody for coming. Have a great night. See you next week.